Hey everyone, and welcome back to Newegg TV. My name is Paul. Today we have a special guest here in the studio. This is Leon from Gigabyte. How's it going, Leon?
Good. How are you, Paul?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for stopping by today. I see you've brought a collection of motherboards.
Right. So in front of us we have the gaming series and our overclocking series.
So the gaming series, you guys have the G1 Killer. That's kind of the
G1's right. The G1 Killer is our gaming series.
That's the whole series of motherboards. This is specifically we got the G1 Sniper 5 and the G1 Sniper M5 over there. Those are the green boards.
Right.
And also got OC.
Yep. OC
nice.
And the OC Force over there on your side.
These two right here. So we're going to be giving you guys kind of an overview of these boards, a bit more of an explanation, kind of pointing out some of the features that might be unique to each board, how each one is sort of specifically geared towards use case scenarios, gaming specifically, overclocking specifically, but also how these boards might play into other configurations, other setups for computers, because they are all quite versatile. And we should mention that these are all socket 1150 motherboards with the Z87 chipset designed for Intel's 4th generation core processors, aka Haswell.
Right.
And I think those are all the bona fides that we need to get out right there at the top. So where do you want to start off?
Well, we should just start off. Let's start off from our right to the left over here.
Okay.
So starting off, we have the G1 Sniper M5.
All right. So this is a micro ATX board designed for gamers.
So this, like Paul said, this is a micro ATX board. We do have a lot of unique features on this board, such as the LAN. We do have that killer NIC. On all of our gaming series, we do carry that killer NIC, so if you're playing any like RTS, you're playing any strategy game, and you feel that you need that extra internet speed and you don't want to have any lag on it, this would be the board to go with. Not only that, with that, you can see that all of our sockets here are actually in gold, and all of these are actually gold plated along with the CPU.
Okay, so particular for your analog connections over here, that's going to give you a bit higher fidelity or a bit clearer sound reproduction for speakers or headphones that you might plug in.
Better conductivity as well because of the gold plating. Some users might not see it, but we do also have gold plating within the DIMM slots as well, as long as the PCI slot.
Okay, so this is a 15 micron gold plating coating. So typically that's not necessary. You don't necessarily need any gold in those sockets at all. You might just have copper. So using gold as opposed to copper, what sort of benefits does that provide?
Well, copper oxidizes a lot easier. Gold is a better transistor, so you can see better, just better signaling with gold. And also, it's just more reliable and durable with the gold. So that's why we wanted to, our motto is ultra durable, so we want to give the users an ultra durable motherboard. And this is one way that we're doing that to improve our product.
It makes perfect sense. And that is included in the sockets for the DIMM slots, the CPU socket.
And the PCI.
And the PCI slot.
As well as the analog and the ones in the front you see.
Very nice. So those are just some extra features. And those are the type of things that you don't necessarily immediately see when you look at a motherboard. It's kind of hidden in there, so it's good to know that that's there.
Okay, and moving forward, not only that, with the gold, we do actually have on our gaming series, we do have this extra chip right here, and this is an operational amplifier, so an OP amp.
Okay.
And this amp allows you to change your audio characteristics. So what you can do, if you're a big audiophile, we have some gamers who are really into music, they like to do some DJing or anything like that. You can actually switch that chip out, and you can find these chips in high-end receivers. These receivers are usually going for like thousands of dollars, but you can pull this chip out and some of them will actually fit in here.
Okay.
Or you can actually go online and find chips as well.
So you can buy your own op amps. It's this little chip right here. These motherboards come with a little grabber tool.
Little tweezers, we can pull
pop
one out
that
right
out. Drop in a new one, and you can change up the sound profile. You can change the tone and the feel of the sound that you're getting, especially if you're using these audio outs that are back there at the back. So it seems like you guys have kind of gone with an accumulation of features here, again, specifically designed for gamers. So not just the fact that you have the socket here for Intel's processors. We know those are going to be nice and fast, but you got a nice PCI layout right here for graphics cards, and you do have support for two-way configurations. Everything else working in with the motherboard, as well as the look and feel, because that is something that a lot of folks go for, especially if you're going for a windowed case. And then the sound, which plays in nicely. So as you mentioned, we got the little
right here for you guys.
I call that a grabber tool. I'm sure that there is a more specific scientific name for that thing.
So right here, I'm going to pull that out. And with when you purchase any of the gaming series, it does come with an extra chip for you to switch out with.
Okay.
But you can also find an upgrade kit, which we sell at Newegg.com.
Oh, very nice.
You can find an upgrade kit, and it it gives you 3 extra chips, and you can actually switch those out depending on the type of music you're listening to.
Okay.
Rock, orchestra, anything like that, depending on what your feel is.
So if you're just interested in playing around and seeing what sort of effect that actually has, especially if you're testing it with your specific configuration, whatever headphone or headset you might be using, a great way to just see what sort of different sounds you can get out of it.
So let's just show them how we do it. So basically, you can just lay it on the table.
There we go.
We're going to wrap it around, squeeze it.
Maybe it's called an extractor. Is that what it is? I think that's probably more accurate.
Well, we're going to grab it and extract it.
All right, so.
So we just took that chip out, and you can see right here. I'm going to put it on the table right here. It's about that big.
Very nice. So just a little integrated circuit right there. It looks kind of like a spider. It's got 8 legs.
Right. And install is easy. Just match up the little dip in the front with the dip on the board.
All right.
And you just push it down once you get all the little pins in.
If you've ever swapped out a BIOS chip, if you have a board that has a swappable BIOS, it's essentially the same exact thing. And there you go. So now you got a new op amp in there. You've changed up your sound tone, and again, tons of those available, whether you're looking on Newegg or elsewhere, and it gives you lots of flexibility for playing around with the different sound profiles available on this motherboard.
Right, and just to go over some of the quick features that we've added into this board, we have the better heatsink design. We have it's a little bit more sturdier, a lot more durable. We do have the quick buttons, the Cmos reset switches, the power button, and we also have a BIOS switch if you want to use your secondary or primary BIOS.
So those are these right down here. So these are switches for BIOS, and then the surface-mounted buttons, which I always find to be incredibly helpful, especially if you're doing that initial outside-of-the-box build to make sure everything's booting up properly. Just makes it a lot easier than trying to short pins or something like that.
And then we have the debug, and then we also, if you guys can see, all of our system fans now are 4 pins. So it does allow the system, the BIOS itself, you can actually control it in the BIOS as well as in our App Center program that you can find online for our 8 series boards.
And that does give you PWM capabilities, so if you're using PWM capable fans,
then you're able to control it directly.
And PWM, if you guys aren't familiar with that, it's pulse width modulation, so it uses a different method basically for controlling the fans than just the voltage control that you get with 3 pins. And I find with PWM fans in particular, not only do you get I feel like a smoother operation, it can ramp up and ramp down more easily without that sort of sudden whoosh of increasing or decreasing the volume of the fan, but also PWM fans can run at much lower speeds. So if you're trying to crank your fans down really, really low, a PWM fan will be able to rotate even with a very minimal speed, whereas voltage control fans, sometimes if you try to go that low, it'll get that little, it'll be trying to rotate, but it can't get that first spin around and it can't get going. You got to kind of push start it with your finger, and it's stupid. Anyway, so great job, 4-pin fan headers. Very nice.
All right, so moving on.
Sure. All right, so that's a quick look at G1 Sniper M5, a micro ATX board. Now, micro ATX is growing in popularity. You were mentioning this earlier. A lot of people are trying to build these kind of compact, powerful gaming systems, especially if you go to LAN parties or something like that. But if you're going for a full-size desktop rig, then we got the G1 Sniper proper right here, the Sniper 5. And this is full-size ATX. Is this actually, this is extended ATX?
This is an extended
ATX, so a bit wider here than a typical ATX motherboard where you would find, which I believe is 9.6 inches wide.
Yeah.
I think that's correct.
That's right.
I always have to double check that. But so a bit wider here, so double check whatever case you're installing this just to make sure you have eATX compatibility. But apart from that, the extra surface area here has allowed you to really cram in a ton of features on this board.
Right, so aside from all the features that you saw on the G1 Sniper M5, this one houses a lot of the same features with additional features.
Okay.
So let's start off with the heatsinks. You can see that on the heatsinks now, we have this thermal pipe, so it distributes the heat evenly between the 2 sections, and it also has these water pipes.
Okay.
This one allows for passive and active cooling, so if you do choose to ever use custom water cooling, you can actually install that onto the board as well. Aside from that, again, you can see that we do have the coating. You can't really see it, but we do have the coating on the PCIs, the CPU socket, as well as DIMM sockets.
All right, so that's the 15-micron gold plate. One quick question for you about the heatsink here, since this is kind of a combo deal. This will work perfectly fine for folks who don't have a water cooling setup, right?
Perfectly fine.
Right,
It works as a passive cooling as well as active,
so
and active being the water cooling.
All right, so combo there. You have a fan in here. It's going to provide some direct airflow over there to keep everything cool because, again, like Leon said, these are all connected with a heat pipe to help disperse the heat. Wherever you have a hotter element, it's going to push that heat over to the other area. You can connect this to your custom water loop if you do have a water-cooled system, or just use a fan, and you're good to go either way.
All right, and again, the back has also, back here, you can see, if you guys can all have a look right here, you see there's this little brown line. This line actually separates our digital from our analog side at the corner here. So basically what it does is with the OP amp, with the op amp, it allows you to, the fact that audio is heard in analog versus digital, this allows for less interference.
Okay.
So basically it separates the digital and the analog, and it gives you that cleaner quality in audio when you use the op amp or anything like that.
So again, another feature here for that integrated audio on the motherboard, and keeping that separation there, it's going to reduce interference, any other electrical noise that might bleed over from other areas of the motherboard, and looks pretty cool too.
It looks wicked
cool. There is green LED track lighting also going along here. You might be able to see these little LEDs right there. That's going to light that up. So again, going with the gamer kind of the bling features a little bit. If you've got that windowed side panel and you got this set up in your system and you have everything all color coordinated and everything with maybe some LEDs or something, looks really, really cool. And it's actually at an area of the motherboard that is quite visible in a lot of windowed side panel cases. Even if you've got a big fat Gigabyte graphics card on there, you can still see that on there, and it just
and it shows all the way through the front. So once you flip to the front of the board, you'll see it right here, and it lights up really nice, very Tron-esque.
It's very nice. I do like that. And since we're mentioning it here, and I don't know if we're going to talk about that specifically, the orange boards over here also have that feature.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, they don't. I'm sorry.
The reason being is a lot of people ask this question, and that's a good thing to bring up, Paul. People ask why the overclocking boards and the gaming boards, what's the difference? But you have to see, sometimes overclockers, they don't want all these features added in because they want to focus on overclocking. They don't want interference from other parts or components that they're not using.
Okay.
And with gamers, they like better audio because, you know, when they're playing a game, they might want to hear footsteps in an FPS. They want to hear the audio in a movie scene, in any of the games that are out right now, you know. They have a lot of movie scenes, they want to tell the story, and that's the thing. So that's why we've separated it into the two segments.
Okay. All right, so my bad there, but it's only available on the Sniper series right now. So apart from the audio, on this board, you do have a full complement of PCI slots, so a bit more expansion capability here. And I know we have a PLX bridge on the OC Force board. How are the PCI lanes configured on this one?
Same.
Same one. All right, so this one also has the PLX bridge?
Right, I believe this one does have that PLX bridge. It might be something, because in order to obtain that four-way cross SLI, I think it does need that.
Okay, all right, just double checking there.
Let's see right here.
There we go.
So it does do the four-way graphics support on the SLI and the Crossfire.
So just to explain how that's working for you guys, basically the CPU here has the PCI Express controller built into it. A Haswell processor, which is what fits into this board, has a certain number of PCI Express lanes. It happens to be 16.
Right.
In order to access all of these slots with the bandwidth that's necessary, which is 8x lane for NVIDIA SLI, which is a bit more strict than AMD's requirements for their Crossfire. You're using a splitter here, and that gives you effectively double the amount of lanes. So 32 versus 16, and 32 divided by 4 gives you an 8x connection in each lane. So very nice. So again, if you are going for a massive video card configuration, if you're looking to do a two-way, a three-way, a four-way even configuration with this, whether you're talking an AMD graphics card or an NVIDIA graphics card configuration, you're all set with this board, and tons of PCI Express connectivity there.
And to bring up more, we do have extra SATA connectors on this board as it is bigger. We do have a lot of other connections for the fans. This goes up to 9 fan controllers, and again, they're all 4-pin fan controllers.
Excellent. And then in case anyone was wondering what this little connector right here, that's a Sata power connector. Since we're looking close at it right now, that is supplemental power for the PCI Express lanes.
Correct.
So if you are running a multi-card configuration,
it's best to have that plugged in.
Recommended to plug that in just to make sure you don't have any power dropping out and for your video cards while you're running your games or your benchmarks or.
And also on this board, again with the gaming series, we do have that killer NIC, but we also do have that other NIC here for if you want to do any teaming or anything like that. You can do that as well.
All right, so extra internet connectivity there as well. And the killer NIC, as Liam was mentioning earlier, gives you that software capability that you can install, and that will help to prioritize your packets. So again, if gaming is your priority, which is why you might be buying a gaming motherboard, it'll prioritize those and make sure that you don't have any lag or hiccups or anything while you're playing your online games. Excellent.
All right.
All right. So that's going to kind of wrap it up for the gaming series boards, which we've been covering. Again, the G1 Sniper M5 as well as the G1 Sniper 5 right here. Now we got the orange boards over here, the orange for overclocking, right?
Right. So let's start with that first board right in front of you. This is our OC Force. Now this is our flagship board for overclocking. Again, it has that PLX chip. It does the 4-way crossfire, 4-way SLI. But in difference compared to our gaming series, it has a lot more buttons, as you can see.
Oh yeah.
So
move over to that side. So this is kind of more of a nod towards well, obviously it's an overclocking board, but not just say your typical I'm at home, I'm going to crank up my multiplier a little bit, and now I have a bit of an overclock. You're talking about designing features specifically made for people who are using exotic cooling, who are using liquid nitrogen or liquid helium or something like that, and especially for stuff. So like all of these buttons right here, which are going to control various overclocking features. What is the benefit of having these surface mounted to the board versus having to go in and access them directly from the UEFI?
So the useful thing is in the UEFI, you might have to jump between different sections. But again, with our new UEFI BIOS, it allows you to customize your BIOS. Okay. So if you do choose to, let's say, you want to modify your base clock at the same time you want to modify your multiplier without jumping pages, you can actually set that up in the BIOS.
Okay.
This is for users who, they're familiar, they're comfortable with overclocking on the board. They want to be able to touch it, they want to be able to change it on the fly versus having to move their hand to the mouse, and then switch over. This gives them that convenience and that flexibility. And
I've also seen people actually use these buttons while you're running a benchmark. So you could literally have a load on the CPU, and you can just move up that multiplier just a notch at a time using the surface mounted buttons, kind of take it as far as you can go. And it's much simpler than having to go change a value, enable it every time, and
restart your system.
Restart it in that sort of way. So a great way to do that. Also, how about cold boot features that you have integrated here? Because I know a lot of times when you're working with exotic cooling, the temperatures are so low that you can actually have different behavior for the board when you're working at a lower temperature than when you're working at a normal temperature.
Right. So in regards to that, we do have certain features that help with that, like our OC ignition. This will keep your board on while you do if you're using like LN2, you're using liquid nitrogen, and you have to shut down the board, but you don't want to have that cold bug where you get a lot of condensation on your pot. So what happens is you push that button, it keeps all your components running powered. Okay. So your hard drive will run. If you have any iRAM disks or anything, that'll stay powered. Your DDR3 will have power. Nice. And that reduces, in a sense, it reduces damage because components often, when you turn it off and on, it creates wear and tear. So by doing that, it'll keep your fans running, and you can keep your system cool while you do any other testing, removing any graphics card or changing any of the components out. Okay. And apart from all of the surface-mounted overclocking features, we also have some voltage read points that are integrated right here. So you guys can probably see those. So you can connect up either your, I'm guessing these are, you have solder points here, as well as the plugs, so you can kind of go either way depending on whether or not you enjoy soldering, I suppose. So let's just go briefly over the overclocking features right now. Sure. So from just now we talked about OC ignition. Now this is good for users who use LN2. It's also great for users if you want to demo your system. You're a great case modder, but you want the lights on in your system. You can do it for case modding. You can also do it for any like showcasing, stuff like that. Okay. So anything you can think of where you want to keep your system running, if you want to keep the memory stored on your iRAM disk without without losing the power to it, you can do that as well.
Nice.
The next button over, you can see that it says tag.
Okay.
Now, this tag button lets you jump to a preset, a user pre-created profile in your BIOS.
Okay.
And basically, by pushing that button, you can jump straight to that BIOS. Let's say like you're playing a game, or you're overclocking, and all of a sudden your friend says, hey, want to play a game? You can actually just hit that tag button and jump away from your overclocking profile and jump over to maybe a gaming profile.
Oh, okay.
And that'll give you the benefit of having that overclock system that's stable for you.
So an easy way to jump back and forth.
Right.
Nice.
And then the next one over is turbo. With
Okay.
the turbo button, it's just a quick way to overclock your system for beginners. All of these overclocking boards, they're great for overclocking, but sometimes we do have beginners coming in. They want to know how to overclock, but they're kind of scared in the beginning.
So if I just bought this board because it was orange and I don't know about overclocking,
You can still overclock.
that's the turbo button.
That is
who
the turbo
button
button.
is for.
So-
Okay.
So the turbo will let you overclock. The next one over is just a power button for your system. Easy, quick button on that, surface mounted.
Also reset, the little white one that's located right
Reset
there.
right there, correct. And below that, I believe it is the BIOS. So you can actually go to your BIOS if you want, switch between BIOSes and enable BIOSes.
Okay.
Sometimes we do have the issue, like you brought up, with the more exotic cooling methods. The system might recognize the BIOS as dead or something, you know.
Okay.
So you can actually disable that BIOS so it doesn't automatically write a secondary BIOS over to that first BIOS.
Okay.
The next one over, underneath, starting from the left to the right, you see a plus minus and then the gear.
Okay.
So the plus minus actually moves. It moves the frequency by hundreds.
Okay.
And when you hit that gear, it'll actually drop down to 0.1.
Okay.
So that way you can step. It helps you step better when you're doing any overclocking. It changes your frequencies, but that gear button allows you to step in smaller steps.
So you can either do a tenth of
Smaller,
a point
like,
or,
right,
or
so you can
100th
do
of a
that.
point. Okay.
Yeah, it's
So that's
And then-
for fine tuning.
right.
so to
And then
speak.
the next one over is the CPU multiplier. So then you can change the CPU multiplier as well.
Okay, very nice. So all of those features located right there, conveniently in one spot. And then of course you'll probably also see some of the other features of the board around there, like you got the debug LED. We already mentioned that. You've got, as you already mentioned, all of the 50 micron gold plating in all the sockets. Actually, I wanted to point out this little set of dip switches right here, because we've heard that this might be confusing some people out there.
Right.
These turn your PCI Express lanes on or off.
Correct. So just be careful if you do have a board, you're using a graphics card and you say, hey, you know, I put it in, how come it's not working? It might just be that your dip switch is in the off position, and that's why it's disabled for you.
So it will ship in the on position, but just in case it got switched accidentally, something like that, double check that, because it doesn't mean your graphics card isn't working. Those are there specifically for people who are testing multi-card configurations, and I think they're most useful for people who are water cooling, because if you set up a multi-card water cooling loop, pulling that out is really a big pain in the butt. So whether you're troubleshooting something or whether you're trying to benchmark different configurations going from 1 card to 2 cards to 3 cards to 4 cards, just turn the lanes off, then you can do your testing and you don't necessarily need to actually physically pull the cards out. So
and when you need it, you could turn it back on.
Very nice. So a very cool feature again, designed towards overclocking, benchmarking, and all of that type of stuff that overclockers and benchmarkers like to do.
Again, with the water cooling, this board also does that same thing as the G1 Sniper 5.
Okay.
You can see the larger heatsink across. It does have the active and passive cooling, so you do see the little hose connectors there.
All right, so some little barb fittings on there. And again, this has a fan as well as that liquid cooling pipe.
Capable.
So you can go either way. So again, you don't need the liquid cooling to run this board per se. All right, so that is pretty much going to round it up for the OC Force. Anything else on this particular board?
Nope, that's most of it.
There's lots of stuff on this board. Actually, we should mention, if you guys want a really detailed overview of each of these boards, we've got some more videos on our YouTube channel where I kind of go over and point out all those little features. We're focusing more on the specific design points from Gigabyte that are more geared towards what you might be using these for, but we have also got full overview videos available on our YouTube channel. We're moving on now to this guy here. Now, this is the Z87 Oc, and
it's brand new, as you can see.
it's brand new. I'm sorry, I'm peeling the plastic off. That always distracts me. All right, so this is the Z87 Oc, and Leon was telling me something funny about this board.
So the
You said
Z87
this board might actually be a better overclocker than your King, your
Right.
OC Force right here. Now, why is that?
And the reason being is just like how you would any sports car, you know, by having all that extra stuff in it, the air conditioning, whatever, it weighs it down.
Okay.
And with this one is a very minimalistic board. It doesn't have all those extras that you would find on that board. So this one can't. This one can do 3-way. It can't do the 4-way. But what it does is it doesn't have that PLX chip. So what it can also provide for a faster and more direct connection straight to the CPU.
Okay. So that means no latency by going through that PLX chip. And you mentioned this says 2-way and 3-way support for.
Right.
I think it would be 2-way for SLI
and then 3-way for Crossfire.
Okay. And so you mentioned sort of that when it comes to overclocking, like. The way I look at this is kind of the same way when I'm setting up a system to benchmark a graphics card. I install Windows, I want a clean install. I don't want anything else on that system. All I want is the benchmark programs I'm going to run. I don't need, you know, the fancy audio suites or anything like that. So is that that's kind of the tack you guys took with this board.
Right.
Let's give the hardcore overclocking features that overclockers want to see, and really not much else besides that. In order to keep it more of a thoroughbred design specifically for overclocking.
So this is really good for benchmarking, as you can see. It's very clean, very minimalistic. That one's good for overclockers who want to put it in their system. They want to do overclocking, but they're not going to be, you know, they're not going to do a lot of testing on it, but they want an overclocking board.
Okay.
Again, there's similar features. It has the dip switches we talked about earlier. It has the little quick buttons. And it also has some other buttons on the bottom here, as you can see.
Okay.
Down here we have like direct to BIOS. So basically, rather than playing Space Invaders, you can actually just click that button. And
I love that button.
And it'll shoot you straight to the BIOS. We have, let me see, we have the tag switch, the turbo, the gear. We have a trigger switch here. The first one here is a trigger switch. So this trigger switch allows you to actually downclock your system all the way down to a state where you know that it won't blue screen or crash.
Okay.
And then right when you're about to run your benchmark, you can actually flip that switch, run your benchmark, get your score, and before it becomes unstable, flip that switch again, and you'll get that score that you're looking for.
As long as you get the score, that's all that matters.
Right. The next one over is a BIOS switch, so you can switch between your dual BIOS or single BIOS.
Okay.
And then this one over here is your single BIOS. So this one allows you to turn it, enable it, or disable it, and the next one over, this button, is settings lock.
Okay.
So it goes to your last known good configuration. So just like Windows, when you do have any issues with it and it crashes, it asks you if you want to boot with your last known good configuration. Same thing with the board. So let's say you're doing overclocking, and all of a sudden you try a certain frequency and that frequency crashes your system. You can actually hit that button and it'll go jump to your last known frequency.
Okay, so an easy go back button.
Right, and then this one is memory safe. So memory safe allows you to actually, let's say you're using RAM. You just bought RAM, you're just building the system, your system won't boot. You don't know why. So you can hit memory safe, it'll downclock your memory, because a lot of issues that we do see is, you know, people have unstable memory timings or something like that. And it'll let you actually downclock your memory, and it'll allow you to boot with your low memory settings.
Okay.
So it's just good for debugging, for troubleshooting as well.
And it also, I imagine, lets you sort of maintain any other settings that you've set in, that you've already input, versus doing a full reset.
Right.
So you can just sort of troubleshoot the memory and see if that was the issue.
Right. And so again, at the end, we have that white button for your reset switch. We've gone over the top push buttons here, the OC touch buttons.
Okay.
We have our debug light. And as you can see, this is a really unique thing. In the front, you can see 2 USB ports. Some people, some overclockers, they like to use their overclocking on a test bench. And rather than reaching all the way around to the back of the I/O, you can actually use it in the front. So just in case you want to use it for, like, you know, USBs, you want to pull your score or benchmark testing off, you can use these as well.
I was actually going to ask you about those. I have a couple of test beds that I've set up, and I'll fish out one of those little USB, like PCI rear panel things.
The pin headers.
Yeah, and I'll plug it in just so I have a couple USB ports right up there at the front. But here, they're just right on there. I thought actually that was, I've seen this configuration done with some boards where like they're designed for work with, say, like a really high-end software suite that requires like an internal dongle, and you can plug it in internally
as a serial key or something.
Yeah, as opposed to externally, since that's, you know, that could be representative of a $2,000 bit of software or something like that. So it could also work for that, but and then also the convenience of just having it there for overclockers and outside the box builds or test beds configurations, which I think is also kind of the idea for this bracket back here, right?
All right, so this bracket right here, we call it the OC brace. Now, for open test benches, sometimes users are testing, you know, they want to do 4 cards, they want to do 3 cards, but the thing is the cards are only being held by this PCI slot.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might feel that you might damage the slot because if you accidentally push on it or put a little bit of pressure on it. By having this brace here, it actually gives it a frame and a structure. So once you mount that PCI cards on it, it actually won't shake as much.
Very
It'll
nice.
actually be mounted as if it was mounted in a case.
So a bit more sturdiness again, especially if you're setting this up just on a
open test bench.
You know, I have test beds that I just plop down on a table, you know, with maybe a mouse pad under it or something like that. And this will give you extra support, again, especially if you're doing multiple video card configurations. And nice that you can just bolt it on like that, and then you're pretty much good to go. All
right, and speaking of graphics card testing, so just similar to that, we do have an additional button here. Now you can see it says a CBAT switch. So I know some users, sometimes they feel that there's an issue with the BIOS. They got to pop their battery out.
Oh, okay.
But by having all the graphics cards placed into this board, there's no way to get to your battery.
I see.
So by pushing this button, it simulates the removal of the battery and clearing of all that electrics.
So it can give you a bit more of a low-level BIOS clear then.
Right.
All right, very nice. So that's something I've actually encountered multiple times before. Sometimes you just get a system, you've messed around with it to the point where you're locked up, and the only way in some situations is to clear the CMOS, pull the battery out, even remove the CPU in some situations, but that will at least let you get to that without having to do a full tear down of your test bed, and especially if you're working out different UEFI issues, which is constantly a dilemma that overclockers face, but nice to have that tool as well.
And then in the back of this board, you can see that we do have that OC ignition here as well. So again, this OC ignition right here allows you to keep your system components on, such as your hard drive, your iRAM disk, or if you just want to do any showcasing.
Very nice.
I just remembered one thing. Just now we were talking about how this one may be a better performer in some senses, but that board actually, it has an extra, on the OC Force, this one can, and this acts as a stand on itself. So this board, you see this black PCI slot?
Yes.
This one has a direct lane.
Oh, okay.
It's direct connection straight to the CPU.
I see.
So if you want to do any testing as well on the graphics side, you can use this slot and it'll go straight to the CPU versus passing through that PLX chip.
So for a single card configuration, you're going to want to use that
for
black
single
slot.
card benchmarking.
And then if you're going for more than that, then you can use these, which will go to the PLX bridge, but that gives you the additional bandwidth that you need for a multi-card configuration.
Right.
So, all right, so nice to have both of those options. So are you saying if you're using this black slot, then you'll probably get about equivalent graphics card overclocking performance?
And that's why this one is the flagship board. This one has a lot more of those features. It has a lot of the overclocking things that most users are looking for.
Very nice. All right. So that has been a look at the Z87 X OC, the OC right here,
and
the OC Force, which is right here, available in both ATX and EATX colors. I mean sizes. That would be ATX for the OC and EATX for the OC Force, and orange, which you know what? I need to get one of these for my wife. She has an orange computer.
Really?
This would match perfectly.
We'll definitely send one over next time.
All right, we'll talk after the show. All right, so I think that's going to wrap it up for this video, right, Leon?
Right, so just if you guys have any other questions, like Paul said, we do have some videos on Newegg.com. Just look at the different product pages and you should be able to find them. Aside from that, again, we love to hear feedback. If you do have any feedback about our boards, you can go to facebook.com, and that's Gigabyte USA.
Gigabyte USA.
Let us know if you have any thoughts, comments. You know, if you love the board, we love to hear from you as well.
All right, so send your feedback to Leon, their Gigabyte USA Facebook page. You can let them know what you think of the boards. If you got any suggestions for future developments, because I know you guys, apart from the boards that are already out, you always have lots of R&D going on for what's upcoming. I know you can't talk about that right now, but I still want to tease it to our fans out there. Well, Leon, thank you very much for stopping by today.
Thank you, Paul.
And thanks to all you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, informative, or entertaining, or you just like that I'm not able to talk right now, click one of these buttons down here. You got like, you got dislike, you got some comments section. You can post comments down there for us as well if you'd like to leave us feedback. Really appreciate you stopping by today and watching this video, and we'll see you next time on Newegg TV.